I'm going to count down from 3 and then we'll clap real loudly. Directly into your
How many
mic.
times? Just one
Like
or two?
3 times is good.
3 claps. Okay.
3, 2, 1. Okay, unbelievable. When I say 3, 2, 1, you start clapping.
I have a delay on my video. So you're like a second ahead, but the audio is good. And so I don't think it's messing up on your side. It's just on my side. So I don't think it really matters. As long as he knows where to start it,
Yeah,
it's still going to be lined up.
Are you ready?
You know what I mean? So
3, 2, 1.
I heard you say 3, 2, 1 after I clapped.
It's because you started clapping while I was still counting.
No.
Yeah, you did. It was like 3, 2.
You're right. You're right. I didn't remember what I was going to say. I just did it because it wasn't working. All right, let's see. Episode 97 for those who are listening to the audio that are editing this for us.
Episode 97. We are ready to rock. Wait, time out.
Are you ready to rock? Hey, I found that app.
Hang on. I'm talking. That looks weird though, because I'm always looking over there. I'm talking. I'm here, and you're my dad. And I love you. I love you. I love you.
What?
Elf? You've never seen the movie Elf?
I've seen it. I just didn't know what you were talking about. I'm like, I'm not your dad. What are you talking about?
Unbelievable.
Pat Flynn's live on Periscope 17 minutes ago. All right, let's go.
Hang on.
Remember, you start. I don't know if you remembered that. Thanks for turning off your microphone. I appreciate that.
Okay. Okay. I like this. Odds are that you've experienced burnout in your life. You know, those times when you wake up tired and you go to bed worn out and the rest of your waking hours are filled with anxiety and a feeling of hopelessness. That kind of burnout. Well, today we're going to share part 2 of our discussion on how to overcome burnout and start enjoying your life again.
Welcome to the World Changers Show with Matt McWilliams. I'm your host, Mark Sieverkrop, a world changer just like you and Matt. On each show, we're going to bring you an inspiring person or message to help you unleash the world changer inside of you and live with passion, lead with purpose, and leave a legacy. Thanks for joining us today. Now let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the World Changer Show. You're listening to episode 97, and this is part 2 of a 2-part series on how to overcome burnout and start living again. So if you haven't listened to part 1 back in episode 96, you may want to go back and listen because we talk about the first 4 ways to overcome burnout, and today we're going to talk about ways 5 through 8. And you can find the link to that episode and everything Matt and I talk about today, including the unedited video cast of the show, on the show notes page at mattmcwilliams.com/097. So like I said, today we're going to talk about the last 4 ways to overcome and avoid burnout. Ways 5 through 8. So Matt, before we jump into the final 4 ways, which makes me think of basketball when I say it, let's recap what we talked about in part 1. The first 4 ways you recommended to overcome burnout and start living again are: number 1, plan a week off, either completely or just from your side hustle or your part-time gig, whatever you're doing. Number 2 is to keep that time off simple. Don't go to Disneyland. Don't plan a whole bunch of stuff. Just keep it simple. Number 3 is to eliminate something from your schedule immediately, something that maybe isn't having a big return in your life right now, just for a season, not necessarily forever. And number 4 is to create a daily family ritual, something that you rarely miss and that you really look forward to. So with that, let's dive right into the final 4 ways to overcome burnout. Matt, what's number 5?
Well, number 5 is planning family date nights. Now, obviously this only applies if you have a family, but this could apply, whether you have extended family or whether it's with your friends or whatever, is each week have a family date night. Now, to remind people who may have missed the last episode or they've been a while since they listened, this advice originally was generated, or the genesis of it was when you reached out to me long before we worked together, and you were asked like, "Hey, Matt, I'm just burned out. Like, what do I do?" And I wrote this email back to you, and here's the advice I gave you. So I was writing it to you as someone who had a full-time job, 2 kids, and you were doing a side hustle, a side gig. You had a dream job that you were working towards. And so This was number 5, to have a family date night. And so again, this goes back to that thing of looking forward to something. If you plan a family date night every week, whatever night it is, could be Saturday nights, could be Tuesday nights, doesn't matter. You have something to look forward to. So it doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be expensive. Most of ours cost less than $20. We have 4 people in our family. Now, granted, it'll probably cost a little over 20 when Giovanni's 9 years old and is eating like a horse, but most of ours costs less than $20. I mean, we go out for 2 hours, 2-3 hours on a Friday night, and it's something that we look forward to. It's super simple. Some of them, I mean, no matter what you do, your date night's going to cost something if you eat, whether you're cooking at home or you're going out to eat. But a lot of ours even will just make dinner at home, and it's kind of like the family makes dinner at home thing. It's not the normal Tuesday night, let's see how fast we can make dinner. We're going to take an hour. In Arceli, she's 4 years old now, so we let her use the knife, and she gets to cut the vegetables. And so sometimes not well, but she's still doing it. And so she gets to participate in that. She gets to be a part of it. And it's something special. So for us, normally, it used to be that we would go out to a place that Arceli liked to eat. As we get older, it's going to have to be a place that both the kids like. This is not Tara and I's date night. This is not like the adults pick where to go to eat. So sometimes that means we eat at Taco Bell, and then we go out, we go on a family shopping trip. Sometimes we eat dinner while watching a movie, because that's something that we don't do normally. That is a very special occasion for us to sit. We actually did it last night. Last night was Friday night. We sat down and we watched a movie as a family while eating one of our food from our favorite restaurants. And that is an unusual thing. But it's always a special treat, whatever it is, whether it's we're going to one of our favorite restaurants and then going to one of our favorite stores, whether we're going to pick up fast food and go to the park and eat it and then go for a walk afterwards, or whether we're going to, play soccer for a half hour and then go to the park, whatever it is, it's something that's special. And it's something that we look forward to every week. But again, it's on the calendar, Friday nights, probably 46 nights out of the year. Some of the exceptions might be the night after Thanksgiving, the night before Christmas. If it's something like that, we break the rules a little bit. If we're traveling, we don't necessarily do it. But usually we make up for it. And so we probably have a family date night 50 weeks out of the year. And it's something that, like I said, we're so excited about every week. And you wake up Friday morning and you think about like, okay, what are we doing tonight if we haven't already planned it? And it's like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to this place to eat, and then we're going to go do this. Sometimes it's to just go on an adventure. And, the thing is, sometimes it's just fun to go for a half-hour drive and go see something different and go eat at a Pizza Hut in a different town, even though we have a Pizza Hut 3 minutes from our house. That's Araceli's favorite restaurant. And so sometimes it's just we go to a Pizza Hut in a different town because it looks different, and it's fun. So plan that family date night. It's huge.
Well, and I think it's important to point out that if you aren't like Matt and you don't live in Fort Wayne or a larger city, going to a Pizza Hut would actually take an hour and 15 minutes, like me. But
you're right. I never thought of how fortunate I am to live in Fort Wayne, as the 67th largest city in America. But yes, we have like 7 Pizza Huts to choose from within 10 minutes of our house.
Right. But we do the same thing. I mean, it's interesting. We started doing like a family movie night, and it was usually either Saturday or Sunday night. And now it's like every week Brooklyn's like, are we doing family movie night? What movie are we going to watch? Let's get the blankets out and let's lay them on the floor. And like, Dad, will you make popcorn? And it's just fun. And half the time we spend half the time telling Cash not to jump on everybody, but we're still together and it's still fun. So I love that suggestion. And I think, even if you aren't married, this goes back to like you were talking about with the ritual in the last episode. You can do the same thing with friends or with your parents or with your siblings or whatever. The idea is just to have a time that you can relax and not have
Yeah.
to focus on work or your, side hustle or whatever you're doing. So moving on, Matt, what is number 6?
Well, number 6, and this only applies if you are married or in a relationship, and it piggybacks on that last one, which was to do the family date nights where you're doing something together as a whole family. But this one is to get out with just your spouse, just your significant other. And what that means is maybe normally, during the week, maybe you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend and you hang out with friends. Or maybe, like us, we're typically with our 2 kids, most of the time. 99% of our waking time is spent with our kids, or 95 or whatever percent it is. And the thing is, those are important. The family date nights are important, but married couples specifically, I'm speaking specifically to married couples. And I know from surveys that that's the overwhelming majority of our listeners. Married couples need time alone. You need time where you can reconnect and be romantic. And, I don't know about you, Mark, but there's nothing else for me. There are very little other things that even come close to filling up my energy levels, restoring my soul in a way, and getting me, we're talking about getting out from burnout, whether it's to get out from burnout or to avoid burnout. There are very few things that will keep me from being burned out and get me out of my funk as much as spending time alone with Tara. And I will tell you, like, again, going back to what we talked about, we just came off of a newborn. Having a newborn, he's now sleeping 12 hours through the night, but there was a time where we were waking him up every 3 hours and to feed him. And then even when it became like 5 hours, it was still, we weren't getting a good night's sleep, but she was also feeding him 8-9 times a day. And if you're feeding every 2.5 hours, even when her mom would come over to babysit, it was like we rushed out the door. By the time we got where we were going, we hardly had any time to do anything. And we were right back home to feed him again. And it was exhausting. And my energy levels were depleting. And as soon as we hit that time where he was old enough to go, it was fine for him to go 3 or 4 hours without feeding, or when we could feed him with a bottle so her mom could feed him. And we got to go out for like 4 hours on a date and be relaxed. My energy levels were back. It was perfect. Now, the key here is to plan in advance. Are you sensing a theme here? Like, you plan in advance. We're going on a date night, me and Tara, Saturday night. We're going to have time to ourselves. We're going to go do this. And we have to do that because we have to plan for babysitting. But it really does help us to plan that in advance and to talk about it and to think about, okay, what are we going to do on Saturday? We'll talk about that on Wednesday. What are we going to do on Saturday? Well, there's this movie playing and we haven't tried this restaurant. And we're, why don't we, if the weather's nice, sometimes we'll just go for a walk, just the 2 of us, and just talk. Mm-hmm. You got to reconnect. You got to be able to look your spouse in the eyes. If you've got kids, it is hard to find more than a 10-minute, 20-minute block that's not late at night after the kids are in bed, where you can reconnect with your spouse and just look her in the eye and talk about those things that you that at 4 p.m. you say, well, let's not talk about that now because the kids are here. Let's not talk about that now. Right. We'll have to talk about that later. You don't have to talk in code. You don't have to spell things, which we can't do anymore because right. RSLA can spell all the words we're saying. You don't have to talk like that. You can just talk like 2 adults enjoying each other's company. And I have found that those times, like I said, just restore my energy, my excitement, my vitality. And I just feel better as a person, and I feel better as a husband. But I also, when I have those date nights on Saturday, followed by typically on Saturday, sometimes we do them on a Wednesday afternoon, mm-hmm. Tuesday morning. Sometimes we'll go to breakfast, whatever it is. I'm a better worker. I'm more productive the rest of the time. I'm a better leader. For our team, I'm better at everything because of that time.
Yeah, definitely. This one is so unbelievably vital. And it's so easy to neglect this because, like, you feel like you need to be with your kids because you're a parent. But then, I see so many, it blew my mind, once I got out of high school and seeing I had 3 or 4 families, my friends as parents, that all of a sudden they got divorced. And I really think it's because those are people that they spent 20 years being parents to their kids, but they were never spouses. They were never, they were never friends with each other. And so all of a sudden, once the kids are gone, the one thing you have in common is gone. They're not there anymore. And so then you end up divorced because you don't know this person. You've never spent time with them. You've never had to interact with them all by yourself, except for, the 9 months or 2 years before you had kids, which was decades ago. And so it's so, so important. So I'm glad you brought that up and made this distinction.
Yeah. And let me be clear about something. And I'm going to speak specifically to the men here for a moment, but this applies to the women as well. Your most important relationship, if you are married,
Yep.
At least on earth, your most important relationship is your spouse, not the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 1,000 reasons for that. One is, our worldview is a Christian worldview, and that's what God tells me.
Yeah.
But aside of that, I'll never forget what our old pediatrician said. He said, your kids fit into your life, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a selfish thing. It's to say that your kids have to learn that life does not revolve around them. That is healthy for them. Now, are there times where we sort of revolve our life around our kids' schedule? Yeah, there are.
Absolutely.
There are hours of the week where we do. If Araceli has a soccer game at 9:45 on a Saturday morning, that changes the way we wake up on Saturday and how we go about life. And it changes about a 4-hour block of our life on Saturday mornings. There is no other block of the week that is centered around her unless she has a doctor appointment or soccer practice.
Right.
But outside of that, the kids fit into your life, and they need to know that it's important.
Mm-hmm.
And if you come at that from a place of, I want my kids to grow up feeling loved, but also feeling like life doesn't revolve around them, as opposed to, well, I'm coming at this because I'm more important than my kids and screw them. That's a different place. Your most important relationship is with your spouse.
Right. And
if you have a healthy relationship with your spouse, there's number one factor in kids' mental well-being, their psyche as they grow older, their depression rates, suicide rates, their grades, everything. It's not how hard you push them. It's not how much time you necessarily spent with them, although that is important. And it's not, whether or not they were involved in 17 extracurricular activities or not. It's how would you rate the quality of your relationship with your spouse? Mm-hmm. And parents who rate the quality of their relationship at an 8, 9, and 10 have healthier children. They have they have better adjusted children. They have children who make better grades, children who are less likely to commit suicide, have lower depression rates, mm-hmm. are less likely to get pregnant at the age of 14. All of those statistics that you could look at because their parents had a healthy marriage. And that's why this is so important. And I know you know this, Mark. Mm-hmm. The toughest thing for me to do when I go to work every day, now I work from home, so it makes it even tougher. And I know you do as well now.
Right.
The toughest thing for me to do is to try to be productive, to try to be a good leader, to try to stay focused on my work when my relationship with Tara isn't where it should be.
Yep. Maybe
we had an argument. Maybe we have it's just a disagreement, mm-hmm. or maybe it's because we haven't spent any alone time in 2 weeks because we had a newborn, right. Or because we forgot about the importance of this because life got busy, because we were supposed to go on a date night Saturday night, but a kid got sick and we didn't reschedule it for Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so easy. Well, the kid got sick. Why haven't you had a date night in 3 weeks? Well, because the kid got sick and we were traveling.
Yeah.
You were traveling for 21 days. Really? You were traveling for 21 days. Your kid was sick for 21 days. Now, that may be the case.
Right.
But 99.9% of the time, that's not. So your kid was sick on Saturday. Why didn't you schedule a date night for Monday? Mm-hmm. Okay, why didn't you just go out for because it's this and go out for an hour.
Right.
Literally, how about this? How about you ask somebody to come over and babysit for 90 minutes and you just go for a walk in your neighborhood? It doesn't have to be complicated, so don't make excuses.
Right.
And I will tell you, the hardest thing for me to do is to be a good leader, to be productive, to be focused when my relationship with Tara is at less than where it should be. I'm not going to try to rate it, but wherever it is, when I can tell if there's tension between us,
right,
I'm useless at work. So if for no other reason, I mean, I can
That
think of a
please
million
don't
other
do
good
that.
reasons, but if for no other reasons, get your relationship right. Like if you're not where you need to be, maybe that means like right now, and I've done this so many times where I have said, can we just go to lunch real quick?
Mhm.
Like, can we, or when we put the kids down, when you put the kids down for a nap at 3:30 today, can you and I just talk for a half hour? Can we spend a half hour together?
Mhm.
It's so effective. So get out on those date nights, schedule them. I suggest at least every 2 weeks, at least every two. That's 26 times a year. That's not an overwhelming commitment. If you can do weekly, I know for us, it's difficult sometimes to find,
Yeah.
for her mom, because that's the only babysitter we trust, to make the time. She's got a life too.
Mhm.
But we intentionally schedule them about every 2 weeks. And occasionally, I'd say probably 8 to 10 other times a year, we fit another one in, just kind of more spur of the moment. And, or we go, and the other one, and I don't know if I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. The other one is get away with your spouse.
Yeah.
So this is a bonus one. This is 6A, 6B. Get away with your spouse. Go on again, doesn't have to be fancy. Sometimes get away with your spouse actually means if money is a concern, it means send your kids to somebody else's house for 2 days and just chill out at home.
Yep.
It could be that you go to a nice hotel. It could be that you go to a not so nice hotel. Like don't go to Motel 6. That's just weird. But like one of our things, like we'll just find a concert or something. And we travel to it. Like we won't go to the concert in Fort Wayne. They may that band may be coming to Fort Wayne. We'll go to see them in Atlanta, and we'll travel down together, and we'll just enjoy that time. So get away with your spouse as well. You can tell I think that's important.
It's totally important, and as you were talking, just real quick, I'll just touch on this. I've learned that the kids need to have that stability. They need to know that mom and dad are going to be there. And if you don't build that relationship, they don't have that stability. And that's what leads to all those things you were talking about, the higher risk. So in addition to the 4 ways we discussed back in episode 96, we have number 5, family date night. Number 6, get out with just your spouse. Number 6A, which is get away with your spouse or send your kids away and spend some time with them. What's number 7, Matt?
The 7th is just to take an afternoon off. And I'm intentional about saying afternoon because, again, while you're working in that morning, you have something to look forward to that afternoon. The other funny thing about it is just productivity wise, if you're taking off at 1 p.m., you'd be amazed how productive you are from 9 to 1.
It's true.
I mean, it's crazy. And so if all else fails, just get off for an afternoon. That's what I talked about earlier. Like maybe it's just you take a Friday afternoon off. Right. If you've got a tough boss, like my boss is a jerk, I'll be going record.
I'm in the same position.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. That's really nice. I mean, it's me, guys. So for those who don't know, I'm self-employed, which means I have the worst boss on the face of the earth. But just take an afternoon off. No agenda, just fun. Maybe you go, like I said, you pick the kids up from school. You take the kids for ice cream. Go watch a matinee. Like we love that there's a movie theater. Again, it doesn't have to be expensive. There's this movie theater down on the southwest side of Fort Wayne. I forget what it's called. But it's super cheap. It's basically movies that came out that like ended their traditional theater run like a month or 2 ago, but they're still in this theater. It's $3 to get in.
Oh, wow. It's
$3. The popcorn, like you can literally take a family of 4 with a bucket of popcorn and like 2 bottles of water for like $20. No exaggeration.
Wow.
And it's fun because it's different. You're sitting in a dark theater at 2:00 in the afternoon. That's fun. Yeah. It's just like, it could be 112 degrees outside and you're in this dark, cool theater. It could be snowing outside and you're in this dark, warm theater, whatever it is. Go do that sometime. And if you can't do that, then like I said, go home and watch a movie. I mean, when I make these suggestions, I try to make it where it's like you can have the free version or you can have the cheap version. These are terrible recommendations. Like, what I really think you should do is go stay in a 5-star resort that you fly on your private jet to. Because most people can't do that.
Right.
So let's make it practical. Here's an idea. Go test drive your dream car. You're not going to buy it next week, but go test drive it. I remember the first time, this is when I was 25 or 6 years old. And we were looking for a car for me. The company was buying me a car, the company that I worked at. And the CFO basically said, we're probably going to end up getting you like a nice Honda Accord, which is a great car, by the way. It was a wonderful car.
Mhm.
But I think it'd be fun if you test drove a couple of others. And so he knew all the car dealers in town. And literally for like a week, I test drove like multiple Mercedes. I test drove I forget what the Infinity was, but it was like an $85,000 Infinity.
Mhm.
And I'll never forget. I went around like a tight roundabout going 45 miles per hour. And his wife is in the backseat with her face up against the window, like terrified. I test drove this other car, and I knew I'd been on this particular test drive road probably 15 times that week. And so I decided to really crank it up. It was a sports car. I cannot remember which one it was, but it was about a $75,000 sports car. And I took it, and my best friend, who's also the CEO of the company, sitting in the back seat. And I looked up in the mirror. I mean, the look on his face was just pure terror. And the dealer sitting in the passenger seat, he's enjoying it because he thinks I'm probably going to buy it now. Because
Right.
I mean, I had this thing going. This is a back road. I'm going 75 up a curve. You know, It was
Nice.
awesome. And I didn't even move. Like the steering on this thing, the quality of this car was out of this world. And it was just fun. Like I just took off an afternoon and just test drove a bunch of cars.
Mhm.
And so cars, like I said, I wasn't going to be able to afford, at least at that point in my life, but it was fun to be able to drive them.
Mhm.
So just, go for a walk, go sit in a coffee shop, just take an afternoon off and make life, do things that you wouldn't normally do on a Wednesday afternoon, a Thursday afternoon, whatever it is.
Sometimes I think we underestimate how small things like that will make a huge difference, and they really affect your ability to enjoy life, but also to avoid getting burnt out. I mean,
Mhm.
you and I did that a couple weeks back. We were going to have a busy week the next week, and so one of the things you said early in the week was, "Hey, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, one of those days, you need to just take an afternoon off and hang out with the kids."
Yeah.
And that break did wonders for my stress level, for my focus,
Mhm.
and it just made a huge difference. So I think it's a really, really important thing to do. And like you said, it really doesn't cost that much, even if you have to, if you're in a position where you have to use, PTO or vacation time. It's only 3 or 4 hours. It's not like you're
Yeah.
doing a whole, you know.
And I think it's important to recognize, especially this time of year, the days are getting shorter.
Mhm.
I mean, where it's crazy. Like this time of year, it's like you think about like 3 months ago, it didn't get dark till 10 p.m. where I'm at
Yeah.
in Indiana. And now, it's getting dark at like 6:30, and before long, it's
Yeah.
going to, 6 o'clock, 5:30.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. If it gets dark, let's just say 6 o'clock, and you don't get off until 5:30, you have no time. You're driving home. It's dark. It's amazing how much even 2 hours, getting off at 3 p.m., 2.5 hours early, suddenly gives you time to do stuff you otherwise couldn't do.
Mhm.
Just 2.5 hours. It takes 4 of those almost to equal an entire day of PTO. And yet, if you do that every 3 weeks, then it's amazing what it can do for. So even just a couple of hours,
Mhm.
giving you that freedom to go enjoy a little bit of daylight. It's especially important this time of year because most of us, we spend the entire daylight hours cooped up in an office.
Mhm.
Unless you're, working outside, like our friend Steve Pate,
Right. Yeah.
he's getting to work outside. Most of us are inside. And that's why I'm really intentional this time of year. It's not as big of a deal, in the summer when I have 4 hours of sunlight after I'm done working. That's why I'm intentional about this time of year, like taking time in the late morning or mid afternoon or whatever it is to go play soccer or just go for a quick walk or a run, or to go do whatever, go rake some, I don't rake leaves anymore, but, do whatever, to go outside and just do something in the sunlight is
Mhm.
super important. And you can't do that if you're not intentional about making the time to take off for just a little bit.
Absolutely. So we have number 5 today's family date night. Number 6, get out with just your spouse. Number 6A, we'll just keep mentioning that one. Go somewhere with your spouse. 7, take an afternoon off. Matt, what is number 8?
The last one, and I think it's what started this whole thing. This is what
Mhm.
you did. It was the first thing that you did, is to talk about it with a friend or a spouse. Talk about it with people. Talk about it with a counselor, whatever it is. Just be honest. Just the act of telling someone that you're feeling close to burnout, or that you are feeling burnout, or that you're
Mhm.
scared about being burned out soon, can make a huge difference. You know, when you feel, I mean, I know I found this true. When you feel burned out, I feel isolated. So I mentioned in the last episode how I would, you know, when we were in this phase, this growing company, and how I would work all day with other people, like leading my team. And then at 6 o'clock, you know, when everybody finally left, I would sit down and I would close my eyes, turn off the lights, and just veg out for 15 minutes before I basically started the next 4 hours of my workday, you know, the marketing side of the business. I felt very isolated. I felt alone. You know, I felt like I was doing this by myself. And so, yeah, for the next 4 hours, I was working by myself. And it wasn't until my friend Hunter came to me and was like, dude, we're getting away for a weekend. I didn't tell him I was feeling isolated, but when he said that, I broke down. He could tell I was burned out. And I just remember, like, when he said, we need to get away for a weekend, and I pushed back a little bit. And then finally I started crying, and I was like, man, I'm at the end of my rope. I don't know what to do. I'm stressed all the time. I'm irritable. I'm angry. I'm tired, and I'm losing it, man. I'm literally losing my mind.
Yeah.
And he went, well, then now we can do something about that.
Yeah.
You know, the truth is we're all going to experience burnout at some point, but just talking about it, expressing how you feel, talking through what you can do to overcome it, it's going to do amazing things. If you hadn't have come to me and said, Matt, I'm just burned out, what do I do? You know, a couple of years ago, long before we worked together, if you hadn't have come to me, first of all, you would have never gotten this advice. And secondly, we wouldn't be sharing this now because I don't know that I ever would have thought through that. But it's, you know, I think even just expressing that, just the act of putting that out there to someone that you trust, that's the key, is there's some freedom in that. Not to mention, they might just have a suggestion, or 8. That's the key.
You know, I think that's so true. And this is one, like you said, that started it for me, but I think it's so important because when I bottle these things up a lot of time, but when we talked about it, you know, it was just this like instant stress relief. The minute that I said something about it, even the minute I sent you that email, it was like, okay, somebody else knows, you know, and you know, whether I got good advice back or you just said, man, that sucks, I know how you feel. Either way, I felt better about it. And, you know, you did this to me a couple weeks ago where, you know, one day you're just like, dude, I am stressed today. There's so much going on. I've got all this stuff to do. And not only I think did that help you, but it also allowed me to say, okay, how can I help with that? What can I do to take some things off your plate? But 2, it allows me to realize if you're working with somebody and they tell you that they're stressed, it allows you to have that frame of reference. So if they get a little frustrated or they get a little annoyed or whatever, you can say, okay, well, they're stressed, or, oh, they're really tired today or whatever. And you can adjust, and it saves you from having that, you know, that tense situation or maybe that argument that might come, because you can say, Matt's stressed today. Matt's got a lot on his plate. This isn't going right. And so it allows you to avoid all of those things. And it's so beneficial. So I think that's, you know, you're right. That's what started this whole thing. And I think it's a very important way to avoid burnout, is just letting other people know that you're getting there, and letting them, you know, help you with that. So I guess the question that I want to ask you as we finish up here, Matt, is I think many people are probably wondering, and I know I have before, how can you identify if you're headed towards burnout? You know, I mean, if we can stop it before it happens, that would be better, obviously. But what if we don't realize that we're getting close to burnout? How can we see that coming?
Yeah, well, I want to go back to something you just said real quick, which was when somebody else comes to you and says that they're burned out, make sure to share these things with them. That's important. Right. And you know, one of the things that you did, Mark, like you said, you asked, like, well, how can I help you? What can I take off your plate this week? That was huge. And I think that was shortly after. That's when we, you know, once I got that out there in the open, and I realized, okay, Mark might be feeling the same way too, or close to it. That's why I said, like, let's just pick an afternoon and take off early, you know, enjoy a little bit of time, so that, because we had to gear up for the next week. But to answer your question, like, how can we identify? I mean, I think that the warning signs are almost obvious. That you know, it's one of those things I hesitate to even say because it's so obvious. I mean, when you wake up tired, you know, you shouldn't wake up tired. Wake up rejuvenated. Right. You wake up excited. Like, this is a new day, man. Like, you're breathing, you have oxygen in your lungs, and you know what is it? I'm looking here. You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You know, quoting Dr. Seuss. You know, today you are you. That's truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you. You know, you're off to great places. Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting, so get on your way. This is a new day. This is like the most exciting thing in the world. So if you are waking up tired, that's a big sign. I think if you are irritable, if you find yourself being shorter with your important relationships, if you find yourself losing focus more easy, if you find yourself at the end of the day, this is a big sign. You find yourself at the end of the day, I'm exhausted and I have no idea what I accomplished. You are burned out.
Yeah.
That's not just focus. That's not ADD. That is, you are burned out. And if other people are coming to you and saying, you look stressed, you look tired, you look burned out, it shows on your face, it shows in your waistline when you are burned out. And if people are telling you, I'm going to just go on record and say, if people say you look burned out, there's almost overwhelmingly they're overwhelmingly accurate statement. When people say you look burned out, you're acting burned out, you need some time off, then you need time off, you are burned out. And those are the warning signs. So look for those warning signs. And if you see them, then start acting on these suggestions.
Well, and I think, you know, you said they're overly obvious, and I think they are, but when you're in that position, and I know I was, it's almost hard to see, like they say, it's hard to see the forest through the trees. Or whatever that phrase is. Maybe I said that wrong, but you know what I mean? It's like you're so used to, and it's so incremental at times when we get burned out. It's just like you slowly get closer and you slowly get closer. And then all of a sudden you wake up one morning and you're like, holy crap, I'm burned out. But I'm like really burned out. Like I don't even want to do anything. I don't want to ever like see anything again. I just want to go to sleep for a week. And so, you know, I think even before we realize that we're starting to get burned out, I think it's a good idea. And like you said, Matt, a lot of these things are things you just implement in your life now, even if you don't feel burned out.
Exactly.
So that it's a habit and you don't get to that.
Yeah, you don't start doing family date nights when you're burned out. You don't start doing date nights with your spouse and getaways with your spouse when you're burned out. You do these things to prevent them. Now, you take a regular afternoon off. You take a regular 3-day weekend before you're burned out. That's the key. This is about how to avoid burnout. It also works to how to get out of it. But yeah, the important thing is if you're starting to feel burned out, that's why I said, man, let's take an afternoon off. Why are we taking an afternoon off? Because I actually don't feel particularly burned out at this point because I know what the next 2 weeks look like. Right. And it's important for us to do this now to let's say our battery is at a level 5, you know, you don't want your battery to get down to a level 1 or 2. So let's get it back up to a 7 because I know what's going to happen the next 2 weeks. They're going to drain us back down to 4 or 5. Right. Well, then you get back up to 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. Sometimes you get back up to 10. Sometimes you just need a little boost. Right. And that's why that's important to do these things proactively, not reactively.
And they'll work better that way because I mean, I can just think if I'm completely burned out and I go to my wife and say, let's go on a date night and I'm all ticked off and annoyed, she's gonna be like, I don't want to spend time with you. Yeah, exactly. You're a brat right now, you know? So it's important to do those things proactively, like you said. Yeah. So to recap, let's recap all 8 ways 1 through 4 that are of overcoming burnout and starting to enjoy your life from episode 96 are to plan a week off, to keep time off simple, to eliminate something from your schedule immediately, and to create a daily family ritual. And then today we talked about ways 5 through 8, which are to have a family date night, to get out with just your spouse. And then number 7 is to take an afternoon off. And number 8 is to talk about it with a friend. So as we finish up today, we mentioned this in the last episode, but I think it's still important. You know, we invite you to grab a copy of Matt's free 12-step guide to handling stress, because as we know, stress and burnout are, you know, twins. They go together. So text burnout, one word, to 33444. Again, that's burnout to 33444 to get your free copy of that. Or you can go to the show notes page at mattmcwilliams.com/097, and we'll have a link there as well. So today's quote comes from, is it Tishan? I think that's how you say it. And I think it really addresses the root of how to overcome burnout. They say, we cannot change life. We can only change the way we live life. Any moment is the best moment, and any place is the best place. Any final thoughts, Matt, on that quote or avoiding burnout?
I would leave it at that. Any moment is the best moment, and any place is the best place. It's about being content where you are, and I think that's a great way to avoid burnout, is being content where you are and working with what you have, and doing the things that you can do. You can, like I said, this doesn't have to be. You don't have to spend any money to do any of these things.
Yeah.
If I hear from so many people when I tell them this, well, my boss doesn't let me. Okay, then surely your boss will let you have an afternoon off at some point in the future.
Right.
Surely your boss will, allow you to do whatever. I don't know what it is,
Right.
Well, you don't understand, Matt. No, I do, because I've been in many situations, similar. Like, it's not like I have life experiences that are so dissimilar from the entire rest of the world's populations.
Right.
It's about being intentional. Your boss does not control whether you have a date night with your spouse at some point.
Right.
Well, I work second shift. Okay. So you work from, 6 p.m. to 2 a.m., whatever that may be. So that, and if you work 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. every single day of the week, or do you have like one day off? Well, I have one day off. Well, then go on a date night then. Go on a date lunch. Go on a whatever. Sleep in until noon instead of 8 a.m. I mean, whatever it is, like, you plan your schedule around that, you can find time to do these things, as long as, and we've almost beat a dead horse with this, you got to be intentional about it.
Yep. And, today's question goes right along with that. And that question is, what is the one thing you're going to do this week to overcome burnout, or to avoid it if you're not there? What is the one thing you're going to do? We've given you 8 suggestions. You probably have more on your own. What one thing will you do this week to avoid or prevent burnout? So go to mattmcwilliams.com/097 to answer that question. And as we said before, you can also find everything we've talked about today, including the link to the free 12-step guide to handling stress, and the unedited video cast of this episode at mattmcwilliams.com/097. Or, like I said, you can text burnout to 33444. And that will give you access to the 12-step guide to handling stress, as well as, Matt's whole world changer resource vault. So, Matt, let's take a few moments and thank a few more people who have been kind enough to leave us ratings and reviews on iTunes.
Yeah, you know what? Gratitude is a great way to avoid burnout as well. Yep. When you're grateful for the things you have. So we're grateful to 6 people in particular this week who left ratings and reviews on iTunes. To A7X128. I am assuming that is your given name from birth, and maybe last name 128, maybe. No, thank you so much. Love the whole concept and rake on everything I've heard so far. Thank you to KWFTX. Maybe they're from Texas. Thank you so much. To Monty6919. Because we know there were 6,918 other Monties. Actually, I love this. It says, I'm a high school teacher. I just noticed this and listened to episode 8, in which Matt gives us a glimpse into one of the most humiliating failures from his life and the way he found a way to climb out of that pit. I recommended to all of my graduating students last week, knowing that, and he goes on. That's awesome. I mean, that's cool. Graduating students. Thank you, Monty. To Ken Okel, who said, I don't feel like I'm watching a great party from the outside window looking in. I feel like I'm with him and his guests in the living room at our small table in a restaurant. That's awesome. And to Christina Olivia, and to Jim Jort. I don't know if that's a silent H. We'll go with Jort or Yort. I never know how to pronounce HJ.
Yeah,
I really
it's
don't.
weird.
I think it's Y. I think it's pronounced like yeah. But thank you to all of you for your ratings, reviews. I mean, guys, those are huge. They help us to get the word out about this show. Like, every time you leave a rating and review in iTunes, it boosts our ranking a little bit. And that's not like it is a little bit of a vanity thing, I will admit, but it's not all vanity. We like to be higher because we're more visible and we can inspire more world changers just like you guys.
Well, and I think it's important to point out to Ken as well that I am recording this in my living room. So there you go. You are actually listening to Matt and his guests in their living room at this point in time. So if you haven't left a review for us yet, you can find the link to do so on the show notes page at mattmcwilliams.com/097. And now, as we've been doing, Matt, what is the pick of the week?
I'm loving this. This is every week
been fun.
we're introducing people to like a new resource. Sometimes it's free. Sometimes it's something you might actually have to buy. Sometimes it's going to be a book. Sometimes it's even something that we'll actually make money on if you were to buy it. But it's our top resource of the week. It's our pick of the week. And this week it's actually from a past guest of ours and a good friend of mine, Jeff Goins. He's got his new video series out about his Tribe Riders course. It's a totally free video series, and it's going to show you, it's going to take you along this journey. I think there's 3 videos in this series. It's going to take you along this journey about why you need a tribe. You know, Seth Godin years ago wrote the book called Tribes and Why You Need One. And it was, you know, it's about why you need a tribe to actually get your message out. And then he takes you on this journey from that, why you need a tribe, to how to build a tribe. And then, and a lot in between there. It's an awesome video series. We'll have a link in the show notes for how you guys can access that. But again, it's from my friend Jeff Goins. He's an amazing writer, an amazing speaker. You can listen to him. One of the past episodes, I forget which one it is, talking about his book, The Art of Work, which is phenomenal, and especially chapter 5. I only say that because I'm in chapter 5 is about me, but no, I mean, check out the videos, and no obligation to buy anything, totally free to get the videos.
Yeah, and we'll link to Jeff's previous episode in the show notes as well. And you can find that as well as the link to these videos that Matt's talking about at mattmcwilliams.com/097. Until next week, remember, you were born to change the world. You were born to make history. You were born to enjoy a life without burnout. So believe it, become it, and pass it on.
You're always on guard now that I'm going to put something ridiculous in there, aren't you?
I'm watching. I'm
I
watching. I
promise you I'm not. Not today. I'm not
today.
All right, so we'll step away real quick.